I want to take a moment to introduce myself and my colleague as well. My name is Kristen Wilde, and I am the leader of our professional learning team here at Newsela. I am a previous classroom teacher. I taught for 14 years in Minneapolis, which is where I live and where I work. I am thrilled to be here and sharing Newsela with you today, and I couldn't do it without support from my fabulous colleague, Steph. Steph is going to be helping and supporting in the chat. You'll notice if you're dropping questions in the chat, Steph is more than happy to provide any information or answers that you are curious about or looking for. And if they don't know the answer to something, they will point you in the right direction or connect you with our support team so that you get all of the help you need. As Steph shared in the chat just now, we are all here to take care of you, so please don't be shy about asking questions. Now, in order to get a sense of your familiarity with Newsela, I would love for you to take a moment, drop in the chat, based on your experience right now. What is your familiarity with Newsela? Are you here as a brand new user today? Are you a Newsela certified educator? Or do you live somewhere in between? Wonderful. It looks like we have a lot of folks who live in that in between. They've logged in, they've explored, they've maybe reviewed data or promoted content. I see a few folks who are brand new to Newsela, which is fabulous. And we even have the benefit of having a Newsela certified educator with us in the room. So, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. This gives me a good indication of our level of familiarity and whether you are brand new, a Newsela certified educator, or somewhere in between. Hopefully, you'll walk away from this session with new ideas and strategies on how to implement Newsela. Now, we all know that the greatest lessons start with the perfect content. On Newsela, you are going to find thousands of resources from vetted sources. So, we're going to take a quick peek at the best places to find content on Newsela. Now, if you learn best by following along with me on your own screen, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, know that once we get a little bit into our session, you'll have a dedicated work time to go in and find and work with content. So, whichever learning style is best for you, please make that choice. Hopefully, you are all logged in now to Newsela, and you'll see a homepage really similar to mine. Now, Newsela publishes new content every single week so that you are going to constantly find new and updated resources. Resources that are aligned to instruction and also to current events. You can find a lot of content right there on the homepage, including the latest resources. You can also find content by coming up here to the top of your screen, where you will find represented the subscriptions that your district has access to. Whether you have access to ELA, social studies, or STEM, you'll find those resources there. And then what we're going to take a look at today is the search feature. We can use the search feature on Newsela to find any content related to a specific topic or feature. So whether you teach social studies, science, math, or something in the arts, you will find content related to your unit of study. I'm going to imagine for a moment that I'm a social studies teacher and I am teaching about the Revolutionary War. I'm going to type in Revolutionary War into that search term. I'm going to hit enter, and I am going to see all of the almost 42 to all of the more than 4,200 resources at my disposal. Now, I know I'm looking for an individual article, so I'm going to narrow my search down right up here at the top of my page. Instead of looking at all resources, I'm going to go ahead and filter for individual articles. And here I'm going to find all of the resources available on Newsela related to my search term. And that's not all. Once we have found the perfect piece of content, we need to know what to do with it. And we know more than most that teachers just don't have enough prep time. And luckily, you don't have to choose between saving time and going screen free. There is a tool on Newsela called Luna, again, our over-caffeinated teaching assistant, that is the key to bridging that digital to print gap instantly. Now, most of the time when we hear about AI tools, we think about digital assessments, but Luna is actually the master of the printer. So instead of spending your evenings or weekends manually adapting worksheets or creating graphic organizers from scratch, you can quite literally tell Luna what you need. Luna can take a look at a Newsela article and instantly spit out a customized, editable lesson plan with links to graphic organizers, project ideas, even supports for our multilingual learners. Luna eliminates the hours spent manually adapting or creating worksheets from scratch, giving you your prep time back while keeping students engaged offline. She saves you the prep time so you can just hit print and focus on your students. So let's see Luna in action. Now, I told you previously, I am a secondary teacher, a social studies teacher. I am getting ready to teach about the Revolutionary War. And I have found this really cool article on how cannons that were lost underwater during the American Revolution will soon go on display at a Georgia museum. I have taken a look through this article. I can see that it was originally published by Russ Bynum at the Associated Press. I'm looking at the 12th grade version of the text, and if that's the right fit for my students, I can use that one, or I can pop down to the 7th grade version of the text to determine what version I want to use with my students. Now, I have read through this text and I have determined it aligns with my instructional goals for this particular lesson. But I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out the best way to instructionalize that content. And that's where Luna is going to come into play. When I take a peek at this apply to your lesson section, which is only teacher facing, in this box, I'm going to find a Luna powered lesson planner. And in this lesson planner, I have 2 must input pieces of information and then a couple more that are optional. Now, I have both a social studies goal in mind for this particular article and an ELA goal in mind. I want my students to both understand the significance of this discovery and identify the main idea and supporting details. So, what I'm going to do in this learning objective is I'm going to put both of those things. I want my students to understand the significance of the discovery, and I want them to identify the main idea and supporting details. The second must-do thing within this lesson planner is add standards. We want our lessons to be aligned to the standards that we are required to teach. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on Add Standards. Now I have to add 1 standard. I can add up to 3. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look for the standard I'm looking for. I'm going to type in idea because I can't totally remember the exact code that I need, but I know that the standard I'm looking for contains the word central idea. So I'm going to type in idea, and this is the standard I'm looking for my seventh grade class. Determine a theme or central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of a text and then summarize it. I'm going to go ahead and add that standard. Now, those are the only two inputs I have to put in. But a good idea is a good idea. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to see what Luna comes up with for project ideas. I'm going to see what Luna suggests for supports for multilingual learners. And I'm going to determine how much time do I have for this lesson. Now, in a co-taught high school classroom, I might have a solid 90 minutes to dig into this information. In an elementary classroom where students' attention spans are a little bit shorter, I may have at most 30 minutes to get my students what they need. And I'm going to choose the amount of time that is appropriate for my classroom. And I'm going to go ahead and click Generate Lesson Plan. Now, what Luna is doing is she is reading through the entire text of the article. She's taking into account the objectives that I put in, understanding the historical significance, identifying the main idea, and she's taking into account the standards that I attached. And before I even got done explaining those two sentences, Luna has created a full lesson plan for me. Now, Luna has made my objective a little bit nicer. Instead of my short, understand the significance and identify the main idea. Luna has also given me reading instructions. I don't want my students just passively moving their eyes across the page, but I want to give them some sort of active reading to engage with. And Luna is also going to give me activity ideas. And I see an excellent question from Peggy in the chat that is worth addressing. Peggy's asking, do the standards adjust to the grade level that you suggested? And it's a great question. Now, in my Newsela account, the classes that are rostered to me are seventh grade classes. So when I pull up those standards, it's automatically going to default to seventh grade standards because that is my rostered class. But I do have the option when I click into standards to select the specific grade level that I'm looking for. Also, my account is attached to a New York address, so I see New York standards. You will see the standards that are most closely aligned with the address of your school location. Excellent questions, and keep them coming. So I have activity ideas. Now, am I going to do all 6 of these ideas? Absolutely not. But Luna's giving me options. And Luna is giving me options, including some printable graphic organizers here. And then I told Luna I had 45 minutes for this lesson. And so Luna is giving me a minute by minute, chunk by chunk lesson breakdown. In our introduction and objective, we're going to spend 5 minutes. Then we're going to do 5 minutes of active reading, 15 minutes of guided reading, etc. And down there at the bottom, I have project ideas and supports for multilingual learners. And if there's anything in this lesson that I want to just tweak a little bit, I can go ahead, click edit this lesson, make any changes that I would like to, and then save those changes before I print or download this lesson plan. And so Luna is really helping me as the teacher to develop instructional resources within a text. And one of the absolute best things about Newsela is that when I'm developing my lesson plans, Newsela is going to meet kids where they're at with 5 different reading levels. And you don't lose that when you go screen free. When we think about equity and differentiation, they don't require an active internet connection or individual devices. Newsela's built in digital scaffolds translate perfectly into the print world. So when you print a resource, you can print it at 5 different lexile levels in both English and Spanish. You can print a stack of the exact same current event articles customized to 5 different lexile levels. Your striving readers, your English language learners, and your advanced readers are all consuming the same core information. They're all looking at the same in text images, prepping for the same classroom talk, and no one is singled out and no one is left behind. For our elementary teachers, this means that your reading groups are beautifully supported. For secondary teachers, it means that every student in your room is, reading the exact same topic, looking at the same images, and getting ready for the same discussion. But they're interacting with a text that actually fits them. Equity doesn't require a login, it just requires a great copy machine strategy. So once I have made my lesson plan, I've determined that this is the article I want to use. I'm going to find that print button right up here in the upper right-hand corner of my article. If I'm looking at the 1020 Lexile level, that 7th grade Lexile level, when I click print, that is the level that will be printed. From here, I can decide what activities am I including in that print. Do I want to include images or do I want to leave those images on the digital platform? And if I need another level of the text, I'm simply going to click on this Lexile level dropdown in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to select the other level or levels that I need, anywhere in this case from 3rd grade all the way up to 12th grade, and I'm going to click print on those levels as well. So I have done plenty of talking for the time being. And I want to make sure that you have time to explore, to take a look at the lesson planner, to find and navigate to that print button. So we're going to take about 3 minutes here. In these 3 minutes, I want you to take the reins. Search for an article that is related to a unit of study that you teach at the beginning of the year. Take a think about how you would use that article to support your students and give that Luna lesson planner a try. And then take a peek at the upper right-hand corner and identify that print button. We will come back together at 30 minutes past the hour to continue talking about offline strategies. And as you're exploring, as you're identifying content, go ahead and drop the title of an article that you're exploring in the chat so that we can see and learn from one another. Your 3 minutes starts right now. All right. We are right at 30 minutes past the hour. So now that you've had the opportunity to hopefully find a piece of content, maybe take a peek at the Luna lesson planner and identify the print button, we're going to think about how, when students are engaged in that content, whether it is a social studies article on cannons in this Revolutionary War, or about Spain winning the World Cup, or something in between. We're going to think about those active reading strategies that we can have students engage with. And as we get started, I would love to hear from a few of you. What strategies or tools might you give to students to get them to actively read in a resource? Go ahead, drop those ideas in the chat. How can we get students engaged in content? What reading strategies might we employ? All right. We're going to go ahead and keep trucking along. If you're in the middle of typing, please feel free to send in those strategies. Now that you've had the opportunity to find a piece of content, we want students to actively engage in that content. When students are reading on paper, their reading behaviors change. On a screen, students tend to skim and scroll. On paper, they slow down. They grab highlighters, they circle words, they write in the margins. As Suzanne shared in the chat, I have my students highlight in the text what they think is important. I also use sticky notes for students to add notes to the text. Absolutely, it's a great strategy. David shared, I have my students highlight to support their answers as well. I love this. Now, what you see on the screen is a digital annotation, but just like David and Suzanne shared, highlighting can very easily be done on a paper article. And we can employ several different strategies in order to help students actively engage with print materials in order to make their thinking visible. We might ask students to use different colored highlighters for specific information. For example, highlight in yellow the main idea, and pink for supporting evidence, green for vocabulary words. We might encourage students to write questions, reactions, or summaries in the margins of the text to document their internal monologue as they read. We might have students use simple symbols like a question mark for confusion, an exclamation point for surprise, or a star for important concepts to quickly tag sections of the text. We can direct students to underline unfamiliar vocabulary or define them using context clues or a dictionary, or simply jot them down later to discuss as a class. Stacy shared in the chat pairing students in paraphrasing the articles and experiencing other students' opinions as well as other points of view. Yeah. Nisa shared in the chat annotations are super for tracking comprehension. And once students have annotated information, we can build on that active annotation strategy where students are making their thinking visible directly on the text and utilizing graphic organizers to provide a really structured space for them to take that engagement a step further by visually synthesizing their evidence and ideas. By utilizing editable graphic organizers that can be printed via Luna, you provide students with the wait time that their brains need. They do the heavy lifting of gathering evidence on paper first. That way, when it's time to talk, when it's time to work with a partner or have a whole group conversation, their notes act as a safety net, giving every student the confidence to raise their hand. And the best part about AI generated graphic organizers is that they can be used to differentiate the process of thinking. For example, struggling readers might get an organizer with sentence stems or vocabulary banks, while advanced readers get more open ended conceptual prompts. So, I want to show you on any Newsela article where you can find those graphic organizers and how you might think of editing them. To do this, I am going to come back to this article about cannons in the Revolutionary War. You should be able to find this on nearly any Newsela article that you might be in. To find the graphic organizers, I am going to look at the assignment builder on the right-hand side of my screen. Now, this should be expanded for you already, but if it's not, you can click on assignment builder here. And if your screen is a little bit narrower than mine, you might see it at the bottom of your screen instead. But about halfway through that assignment builder panel, you are going to find graphic organizers. And when you click view, you will have options of many graphic organizers. Now, to support my students in finding the main idea, I might come here to this central idea graphic organizer. Now, this central idea graphic organizer contains some amount of pre-filled information. And there may be students for whom this pre-filled information is the best choice. And I might download that version of the graphic organizer as a PDF and print it for those students. There may be another group of students for whom I want to also add one of the details as an example. I can type in that detail, download it as a PDF, and have that version of the graphic organizer as well. And there are other students for whom I would like to take away any pre-filled information because I want them to do the work of identifying those skills all on their own. When students are utilizing a graphic organizer, they're both practicing their handwriting, which many of you mentioned in the chat at the very beginning of our session is a challenge for our current students. They're also preparing themselves to discuss the information that they've read. And so we're going to talk about some read to talk routines. Once students have done the heavy lifting of organizing their thoughts on paper, it's time to put that prep work into practice. We know that graphic organizers are that perfect bridge between independent reading and collaborative discussion because they lower the barrier to entry. Every student has their ideas already written down and ready to go. But the real magic happens in how we structure the conversation that follows. We want to move beyond students just getting through a discussion and towards genuinely building soft skills like active listening, turn taking, collaborative problem solving. And these read to talk routines are specifically designed to leverage that written evidence as a scaffold, giving students the confidence to interact with one another meaningfully. So let's take a look at two examples of how we can transform classroom discussions from passive listening into high engagement, student-led interactions. Now, we've all been there. You tell the class to turn and talk, and they either stare at each other in silence or start talking about what happened at recess. And to address that, we can use an elevated turn and talk called Say, Mean, Matter. It explicitly stops students from looking at their partner and saying, I don't know, what did you get? When they turn to their neighbor, they have to answer 3 quick things using their graphic organizer. Say, what did the article actually say? They're going to point to a sentence that they underlined and read it out loud. This grounds the conversation strictly in text evidence. Mean. What does that mean in normal human language? They explain that sentence in their own words. And this is where analysis happens. And then matter. Why do we care? Why is this detail important to us or to this lesson? They discuss this fact that matters to how this fact rather matters to the world, to the lesson, to the theme, to themselves. It gives students a track to run on, keeping them grounded in the text and gets them talking like real experts. And because students have read the same core information, no matter the level of the article, they can pair with students across the classroom to hear different perspectives, to gain insight into what their peers have underlined and why it matters to them. Yeah, Naya shared making a connection here. I just went through the book 5 Questions for Any Text, and you could totally implement those techniques here as well. Absolutely. So we can turn a turn and talk into a say mean matter, allowing students to use their text, use their information to find evidence from the text and analyze what is it talking about. Next up is a classroom classic with a little bit of a hybrid twist, thinking about think, pair, share. In think, pair, share with a little hybrid twist, in that think phase, we are going to keep the room nice and quiet. Students are reading their leveled print article, writing ideas down on their graphic organizer. Once they've done that, they're going to pair up. They're going to put their graphic organizers side by side. For younger kids, this is great for sharing drawings or vocabulary words. For older students, because they might be reading different Lexile versions, they may actually notice different details in the text, which naturally gets them comparing notes and talking to each other. They don't just talk, they consult their notes. And this can build confidence for students who usually stay quiet. And then finally, during that share phase, you as the instructor are facilitating a whole class discussion where students read directly from their handwritten thoughts. It's highly structured, perfectly scaffolded, and completely device-free. When you call on a student, they aren't put on the spot because they can literally read their prepared thoughts right from their graphic organizer. And the best part about this strategy is that you don't have to come up with the questions on your own. Within each Newsela article, when we scroll down, we're going to go back to that teacher tools box where we found the Luna lesson planner. And if we scroll over to the right-hand side, we're going to find pre-prepared discussion questions. You can use these questions immediately for Socratic seminars, turn and talks, debates. And because every student has a leveled text in front of them, your classroom discussions become more inclusive. Everyone has that fuel for the fire. The screen is gone, but the learning itself is maximized. So in our last minute, as we wrap up our core content, I want to cement the biggest takeaways from today. Technology is the prep. Let digital do the back end heavy lifting to save you personal time. Paper is the performance. Use high quality print elements to easily bypass screen fatigue and cell phone policies. So here's your cheat sheet. Digital is for the prep, the scaffolding, the research. Offline is for the performance, the critical thinking, the discussion. It's not either or, it's both and. As the teacher, your digital footprint is light and highly efficient. You use Luna for planning, for adjusting the Lexiles digitally, perhaps keeping a quiz handy for a quick formative check later on. But look at the student column. It's entirely tactile. They're reading print, annotating with pens, filling out physical graphic organizers, and talking face to face. This is how you respect the tech bans or avoid screen fatigue while keeping high quality learning alive. So, as we wrap up, I would love for you to take a moment to share. Think about your classroom. Where could the print resources on Newsela improve focus or access, discussion, or stamina? And as you're sharing, as you're considering where your classroom could improve utilizing print resources, I want to share a couple of next steps. Tomorrow, we have 4 really amazing subject specific deep dives. I would encourage you to check out the deep dive that is the best fit for you. If you are interested in learning more about Newsela in both a digital and offline manner, please check out our Newsela Certified Educator course. And then finally, don't forget that giveaway. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to win one of our swag resources. So share a pic of you at the kickoff in a public account, tag Newsela for a chance to win. And beyond all of this, I want to take a moment to express our gratitude, mine personally, as well as Newsela's, for everything you do to keep your students engaged, both on and offline. Thanks, everyone.